For those of you joining, tell your friends to join. Just go directly to the United West. Go to youtube.com/TheUnitedWest. Everyone can get in that way. We're still having problems, Susie Gold, with people going to our website. Our website's being blocked by, okay, not echoing anymore. Our website's being blocked by various organizations.
And big tech.
Yep, that don't want, it was Mary's fault. That's okay. All right, so that's what's going out. We got I-24 there.
But everybody join in. Make sure you have your friends join in too, because you will get up-to-date information on what's going on in Israel and this war that's called the Guardians of the Walls, and this attack from Hamas that know the truth of where it started. And this is clearly an anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish, Jewish hate groups of Hamas and the PA that want to drive the Jews into the oceans from the river to the sea.
From the river to the sea.
So
How many times have we heard
that's
that?
right. They want all the Jews to be in the sea. This isn't about one piece of land. This isn't about two pieces of land. This is about all of the land of Israel. So
who are you? Tell me who you are.
Good morning,
Yes.
everybody. This is Susie Gold, and I'm the proud co-host for
Yes.
Tom Trento. And I am here because I want to help in this effort to bring accurate news to all of you. And we're not getting accurate news.
And if you've been following all of our shows and everything through the election and on the radio and all of that, many hundreds and hundreds of hours, very successful here in Florida. We were able to mobilize hundreds of thousands. Our goal was 1,000,001 new evangelical and conservative Jewish voters to vote for Donald Trump in the state of Florida. Last year, 9.5 million votes. This time around, 11.5 million votes. Trump won by over 500,000 votes. We were very successful. In that campaign, we kept our gold team together, about 20 different organizations, to educate people on the election. And we're gearing up to confront the Biden administration and its Marxist jihadist views. And we had a trip scheduled for June to
That's
Israel.
right. We would soon be packing
We'll
and
be packing,
heading to the Holy Land.
Other issues resulted in us not being able to go. And then this pops up. Every 7 years, it looks like the natives over in Gaza and the Palestinian Authority get restless. Iran gets restless. Turkey gets restless. Hezbollah gets restless. And we have a war once again.
And they get emboldened.
They get emboldened.
And they get, paid for by, for all their missiles. And certainly, in this administration with Biden, he is empowering them with the financial ability. And other countries like Iran are providing the resources for missiles and for the military equipment so that they can wage war, because that is the definition of what they stand for. Yeah.
So we're gonna through these shows, we'll be on every day, Saturday, Sunday, whenever. If there's a war going on, if this war continues in Israel, we'll be here reporting 9 a.m. East Coast time. We may put an afternoon show on, also depending on the facts on the ground. But if you're new to the United West, we're an educational counterterrorism organization. That's how we got started in 2006, 2007. You okay, Mark?
Mark hit his head. But he's okay. No blood. We're okay.
Mark hit his head on a hanging studio light.
But he's okay, everybody.
He's okay. I'm okay too. You okay?
We're okay. And if you see us on our laptops and on our phones, and we're getting up-to-date information, we have a team of producers. Specifically, Michelle is the lead producer, one of the lead producers, Monte Cristo, and others that are constantly getting information so that we could bring you what is most current. So,
for today, we have a dear friend of ours who'll be on momentarily. Before I introduce him, we're also queuing up Barry Shaw, who's an analyst, Israeli studies analyst, a little bit north of Jerusalem. He's living in a wonderful city, Netanya, wonderful city of Netanya. And Barry's been a regular guest for 10 years. And he was on the other day, contacted me last night and said, I got to straighten out what the media is presenting as what's going on here in Israel with the Jewish extremists, they're calling them, attacking Arabs and Arab stores, all of that. So we'll bring him on shortly. But right now, we're going to start with a very dear friend of ours, individual who has a Renaissance man, a true Renaissance man, has distinguished himself through his, I think he's 50 years old. I think he's 50 years old.
He's a
I think so.
weightlifting champion.
Yeah, he was a senior weightlifting champion, powerlifting. He does a little bit of writing, made a few very popular television shows and movies, movie writer, screenwriter. So distinguished himself in Hollywood, but maintained a tie as an American Israeli to the Holy Land, and has served even now reservist all these years in the IDF. We met him years ago and have been in the United States at different events with him, and in Israel, different events. Let's give a rousing round of applause for our dear friend, Captain Dan Gordon. Hello, hello. Welcome back, Dan.
Thank you.
Welcome
Thank
back.
you. Good to be back. A couple corrections. I'm no longer a reservist. I'm now retired.
Oh,
I was
okay.
actually with you on the last day in uniform, which was May 14th, 2018, when I was up in Gaza, when we had the Great March of the Return, and we had 3 terrorist attacks against Kerem Shalom, and my brigade and Yamam foiled those attacks. And I'm 74 years old. Thank you very much.
So that's why Israel's getting attacked. You retired.
You retired, man.
When did I leave? Everything goes to hell.
Yeah. We remember that day very well, May 14th, 2018. We were there on one of our tours with Dr. Ronnie Wexler, but specifically for the move of the United States Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And we had a big dinner celebration with Judge Janine Pirro. Michael Oren was our speaker, good friend of Dan's. In fact, they have some combat stories in Lebanon in 2006. And Dan came off the field from the battleground in Gaza because of the move. You know, everyone was predicting the Middle East would explode, and Israel was ready for it. But Donald Trump said, look, since 1995, every president has promised to move the embassy. I'm doing it. It's that simple. And he did it.
Yep.
And the Islamic world read strength. They backed off, and then peace came. And then we have a new administration, and voting
we had
is
the
so important.
Abraham Accords.
The Abraham
was calm.
Accords, all of that. Who knows where that's going to be? But Dan came to the gala where we're all in ties and dressed, and we have cologne, and Dan comes with stinky, dirty uniform, dirt, and this and that. So it was memorable. But Dan, start us off. What the heck is going on for people just tuning in? Can you put this into perspective, what's happening in Israel?
Yeah, they don't want us there. If I had to cut to the bottom line, the problem is not 6 families were being evicted from Sheikh Jarrah after a 30-year court battle, by the way. This nonsense about ethnic cleansing and people deprived of their human rights. Some of the court cases in Silwan and Sheikh Jarrah have been going on since 1972. They've been in court. So this was a real estate lawsuit, which was lost by 6 families, and they were facing eviction. They have not yet been evicted. Hamas was looking for 2 things. Number one, Hamas's long-range goal is to destroy Israel. Hamas's short-range goal is to control the West Bank, to displace Mahmoud Abbas and displace Fatah and control the West Bank. When Mr. Abbas canceled the elections and spoiled Hamas's chances to do what they did in Gaza, which is first win the election and then, like Hitler did, say 1 election and done, we're here forever. When Abbas canceled the election, Hamas began looking for another way to score big in the West Bank. I believe that there were the majority of people who were igniting the protests in Sheikh Jarrah and the Damascus Gate and Temple Mount and Silwan were Hamas operatives and sympathizers, and they made no bones about it. They were flying Hamas flags. So now there's a whole cause celeb of, 6 families are being ethnically cleansed, when in fact these 6 families were living in homes that were owned by Jews prior to Jews being ethnically cleansed from East Jerusalem in 1948. So the real estate conflict was in court for over 30 years. Finally, it got to Israel's Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of the trust, which holds the deeds to the Jewish land. And the families were told, you are going to be evicted, not ethnically cleansed, you're going to be evicted. And they had been offered compensation, which you or I or anyone else would jump on the amount of money that they were being offered to get new apartments. Hamas seized on that and said, we're going to show the West Bank that we and not Fatah are the true protectors of Jerusalem and Al-Aqsa. And as a response to a real estate conflict, they launched 1,500 rockets against one of the most densely populated cities and countries in the world. And those people who find a moral equivalence between someone losing a court case on a real estate conflict and launching 1,500 rockets against innocent civilians have a very, very bent moral compass. So in the past 3 days, we've seen unprecedented rocket attacks against all of Israel, including Jerusalem. The holy city of Jerusalem was under Hamas rocket attack. And just in the last hour, another 100 rockets against Tel Aviv. For those people who are calling it a disproportionate response on Israel's part, the response, yes, is disproportionate, because without Iron Dome, we would have suffered thousands, if not tens of thousands of casualties.
All right, Mark, Dan just mentioned, all right, folks, if you're just tuning in, it's 9:12 in the morning, East Coast time. What is that, 4:12 in the afternoon in Israel. We have a lot of people in Israel watching, some coming on. Dan just mentioned proportionality, disproportionality. Our producer, one of our producers, Michelle, this morning sent a video from the West Wing, a little cut of the television show that is so the spot that Mark, if you queued up, let me know when it's ready. We'll play it. We'll have Dan, who has written these sort of things, take a look at this Hollywood television show, but evaluate, he's trying to set it up, evaluate the argument. It's the president in with all the generals, and they're talking about the war in the Middle East, and that they have prepared a proportional response to the jihadis attacking Americans. And the president has something to say about that. We'll bring that in a minute because it's a relevant argument. In fact, let's pick that up, Dan, because we're doing several things here. You have it? All right, let's play this, Dan. Take a look. Here it is right here. Take a look at this piece, then we're going to ask you to comment on it.
Morning, Mr. President. What do we got? 3 retaliatory strike scenarios. The president's command. Don't fight. We're there. All 3 scenarios are comprehensive, meet the obligations of proportional response, and pose minimum risk to American personnel and assets. Scenario 1, or Pericles 1, uses code name Thur. What is the virtue of a proportional response? Sorry? What is the virtue of a proportional response? Why is it good? They hit an airplane, so we hit a transmitter, right? That's a proportional response. So in the case of Pericles, they hit a barracks, we hit 2 transmitters. That's roughly it. Yes, it's what we do. I mean, this is what we do. Yes, sir. It's what we do. It's what we've always done. Well, if it's what we do, if it's what we've always done, don't they know we're gonna do it? Sir, if you turn your attention to Pericles 1. I have turned my attention to Pericles 1. There's 2 ammo dumps, the abandoned railroad bridge, and a Syrian intelligence agency. Those are 4 highly rated targets, sir. But they know we're gonna do that. They know we're gonna do that. Those areas have been abandoned for 3 days now. We know that from the satellite, right? We have the intelligence, sir. They did that, so we did this. It's the cost of doing business. It's been factored in, right? Mr. President. Am I right, or am I missing something here? No, sir, you're right, sir. Then I ask again, what is the virtue of a proportional response? It isn't virtuous, Mr. President. It's all there is, sir. It's not all there is, sir. Admiral, excuse me. But pardon me, Mr. President. Just what else is the disproportional response? Let the word ring forth from this time and this place, gentlemen. You kill an American, any American, we don't come back with a proportional response. We come back with total disaster. Mr. President, are you suggesting we carpet bomb Damascus? I am suggesting, General, that you and Admiral Fitzwallace and Secretary Hutchinson and the rest of the national security team take the next 60 minutes and put together an American response scenario that doesn't make me think we are just docking somebody's damn allowance.
Teddy Roosevelt. They got Teddy Roosevelt. Oh, Dan
Yeah.
Gordon.
Wow.
Did you write that, Dan?
Wow, that was good.
Did you write that, Dan?
Aaron Sorkin is a very, very fine writer. And unfortunately, the state of Israel cannot permit itself to think like Aaron Sorkin. That we could, but we cannot. We're held actually to a higher standard than Aaron Sorkin is. And that standard says we cannot do a disproportional response. Does anyone actually think that if we wanted to indiscriminately kill civilians in Gaza, that we couldn't do it by the tens of thousands per hour? Is anyone that frigging stupid? We do everything humanly possible to minimize civilian casualties. Hamas does everything humanly possible to maximize civilian casualties. Our civilian casualties and their civilian casualties, because Hamas's calculus is very simple. It's always a win-win situation. If we kill Jews, that's a win. If the Jews strike back and happen to kill innocent Palestinians as peripheral damage in what we were trying to do as a military strike, every dead Palestinian for them is a victory. And they announced that. They call it the dead baby strategy. And the New York Times and the Washington Post and the mainstream media are their willing accomplices. Not necessarily out of ideology. The ideology is certainly part of it, but out of commerce. If it bleeds, it leads. I recall when Hezbollah callously was actually digging up bodies and parading them for the foreign press, reburying them. And then when the next foreign press group came in, they pretended to take them to the ambulance once again because there weren't enough dead. Weren't enough dead for good show business. So this idea of proportionality is something that we cannot permit ourselves to be Aaron Sorkin. We have to have a higher standard than Aaron Sorkin. It's good television. It's great writing. Marty Sheen delivered it beautifully. And I wish that we could permit ourselves to live up to that rhetoric, but we can't. We have to have a higher moral standard than that.
And therein, ladies and gentlemen, lie the conundrum that's faced by the highly accomplished, highly competent Israeli leadership. These are men and women who have been fighting for 50 years, 60 years. And the television show says, you got to teach them a lesson. Dan Gordon is saying our hands are tied. It's a conundrum. Mark, you had a question for Dan, and Susie Gold has a question here.
Dan, I'm thinking back to World War II. General George Patton saying, an advisor comes up to him and says, you know what, General, we need to drop leaflets over them to let them know we're coming. And then we're going to do some door knocker bombs, let them know that we're really going to strike them. And then we're going to drop our bombs. how do you think Patton would have reacted to a person who suggested that to him back in World War II?
Well, Patton's reaction notwithstanding, we defeated Germany not because we dropped leaflets. We defeated Germany because we firebombed Dresden, and we killed something like 150,000 innocent civilians. We defeated Japan humanely, I might add, because otherwise we'd have had an invasion of the home islands that would have cost millions of lives, by dropping a series of nuclear bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Had we not done that, those conflicts would have gone on, countless more lives would have been lost, and had we not had the resolve, I certainly wouldn't be here, but you folks would be speaking German or Japanese.
Mhm.
Susie, you had a question for Dan?
Yeah, Dan. So, as we know, Hamas is launching their missiles from schools, mosques, anywhere where there are children and women. And we know Israel doesn't attack civilians as Hamas does. They don't care. They do indiscriminately. And actually, their missiles aren't as precise as Israel's missiles. So they just launch. And the more they kill, the better. So a win for Hamas is kill a Jew. What would be a win for Israel at this point, and knowing that the missiles are where the kindergartners are and the children? And so what can be the actual outcome for Israel to be a win situation so that they can have a period of calm again?
Israel has set for itself up until today, and this is a fluid situation because there has just been an okay for a plan to go in with ground forces if the security cabinet approves that. So if we go into a ground operation, it's a whole different ballgame, and objectives may change. But right now, the objectives are first and foremost to deal a devastating blow to Hamas's abilities to launch rockets, to hit their capabilities, their command and control centers, their rocket launching centers, and to really put a dent in their ability to launch rockets. Second is to put a dent in their ability to manufacture rockets, because Hamas now is able to manufacture rockets and missiles thanks to the equipment and support and money that Iran has given them. And third, it's to restore a deterrence so that Hamas will again say, we may have overplayed our hand, this wasn't worth it, and it will buy us a period of calm. The most that Israel hopes for in its conflicts with Hamas, with Hezbollah, is not that this will be the war to end all wars. There are no wars to end all wars. In terms of the civil war we've been fighting, the ethnic civil war that the Jews and the Palestinian Arabs have been fighting for 130 years now. There is no war to end all wars. The most we hope for is to be able to buy a period of calm. When we had the Second Lebanon War in 2006, we bought a period of calm, which has lasted now, thank God, for almost 15 years. In 2014, in Operation Tzuketan, we bought a period of calm that has lasted us 7 years. That's what we do in the military operations. There have been two conflicts in the Middle East that people conflate incorrectly. One was the Israeli-Arab, or the Israel-Arab conflict, which involved Israel, Jordan, Egypt, Lebanon, Iraq, Morocco, Saudi Arabia, 5 different countries which invaded Israel in 1948. And Israel had to fight a series of wars, 48, 56, and 67. And finally 73, until the Arab states decided it was in their interests to make peace with Israel. And first Egypt, and then Jordan, and now the Abraham Accords have pretty much brought the Arab-Israeli conflict to an end. That was one conflict. The other more basic conflict, which has been going on for 130 years, is the ethnic civil war between Israeli Jews or Palestinian Jews, if you want to use the Ottoman Turkish term or the British mandatory term, and Palestinian Arabs. You have two people who live in the same area of the world, much like the Greek and the Turkish Cypriots. There have been other ethnic civil wars in the world. We're not the only ones who are fighting for the same piece of land. What makes it different for us is we're the only ethnic civil war that I know of where one side openly declares that their objective is genocide. The charter of Hamas, for anybody who wants to look at what their charter is, their Magna Carta, their We the People, says we look forward to the implementation of the promise of the prophet when Muslims will rise up and kill Jews until the rocks and the trees cry out, "O Muslim, there is a Jew hiding behind me, come and kill him." That's in their founding document. That's their establishment document. Nasrallah, without any apologies, said, "We're so happy that the Jews have come to Israel. We want all the Jews to come to Israel because that will make it easier for us to kill them all." So this is not just an ethnic civil war over a piece of land. This is an ethnic civil war in which one side has openly declared that their objective is genocide. And I still am shocked that the world, that so-called liberal, humane, enlightened, Western civilized figures don't seem to recognize the difference between one side fighting for its survival and the other side fighting to achieve genocide. There's not a moral equivalence between that. If Hamas tomorrow would put down its weapons, there would be peace. If we tomorrow would put down our weapons, we'd be killed. It's really
This is a very, very important point. Tom Trento here, hosting our special report every day, 9 a.m. East Coast time. We're on for an hour, hour and a half, whatever the facts on the ground dictate. We're playing behind us on the screen, I-24 News, which is very good news coming out of Israel that covers the whole country. My co-host Susie Gold in studio. We had other shows planned. We had a weekly 15-minute show, a daily 2-minute little rant of larger documentaries, but the grave, critical, serious situation in the Middle East that impacts all of us here. Dan, as you know, right now there are scores of rallies rising up, Jews, Christians taking a stand for Israel, and an equal number of Nakba, equal number of Islamic jihadi groups organizing, one next week in Boca Raton, organizing against Israel. So what happens 7,000 miles away impacts us here. But part of what we're doing is to show you what's occurring on the ground. We're going to show you some maps and pictures and have videos, have Dan comment on it. But we take an additional direction on this show to dig down for the systemic problems that exist. And what does that say?
Hamas charter.
Oh, all right, we're gonna show that the systemic problems. And Dan just laid out the conundrum that Israelis and the Israeli fighting forces, the Air Force and the ground forces, and all the other organizations, from a tactical point of view, they have to go and engage right now. From a strategic point of view, the tactics being what we do every day, the strategy, how do we solve this thing? There is no classic military resolution of destroying and battering the enemy into a surrender position. It's a proportional effort to quiet them down for a while. Imagine living, and Dan's taken us into the kibbutzes right on the Gaza line and spoken to the folks. The sirens go off. How much time do they have, Dan, from when the siren goes off that a Katyusha rocket, a 6-foot rocket, is coming into their backyard? How much time do the Israelis in Sderot or Harim or these various places, how much time do they have?
In Sderot, they have between 7 and 15 seconds.
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 That's how close the enemy is firing. And I don't think the IDF ever said, it's a clear day today. Let's go bomb Gaza. We got nothing better to do. It's always been a response to the firing. Mark, what do you have up there? You put something up on the screen?
Oh, yeah, the destruction of this is the Hamas Charter, the preamble. Go ahead and read that, Susie.
Israel will exist and will continue to exist until Islam will obliterate it, just as it obliterated others before it. That's on the destruction of Israel.
And that's the Hamas Charter. That's the preamble. That's like we the people.
That's the U.S. Constitution.
We the people.
Yeah. All right, well, this is the problem. Can you put a map up, Dan?
He wants to say something.
Oh, go ahead, Dan. Go ahead.
I think it's really important to note that usually when a country declares itself and says, here's our founding document, it talks about the principles which it will follow as a country and those things which grant it legitimacy. We talk about we the people, and we lay out our charter of human rights that we the people have, as opposed to what the government gives us, which are given to us by God. That's our founding document. Hamas is founded in the negation of Israel's right to exist, not the right of the Palestinian people to do this, that, or the other thing. It is founded in the negation of another people's right to exist, not exist within X border or Y border, not exist within this territory or that territory, but to exist at all. So Hamas's raison d'etre is not the establishment of a Palestinian state. Hamas, as a matter of fact, wants the caliphate. But Hamas's raison d'etre is the destruction of Israel. And by the way, I have a certain respect for Hamas, much more so than I have for a lot of other organizations, in that they openly declare who they are, what they intend to do. It is the Western media, mainstream media, that unfortunately becomes a kind of willing accomplice to this type of Jew hatred and backdoor to genocide by somehow making Hamas the ACLU, or the defender of real estate rights in East Jerusalem.
Dan, I can't tell you how many times our United West team, and there's a few of us in here, and there's quite a few of us, through the past 15 years or so, have publicly read statements like that from the Hamas Charter. The PA has their own documents, similarities. The Iranian Constitution is just as insane, where we would read from these original documents, and the response would be, you guys hate Muslims. You hate Muslims.
How dare you read their document?
Yeah, we're reading their documents and we hate Muslims. That's the mindset we have to deal with. Dan, we need a geography lesson. We're going to put this map up. You got more? We'll sprinkle them in.
If I can, Tom, there is something that Israel could do, and there are smarter people than me who have proposed it. One of them, who you know very well, Doron Almog. And I would hope that whatever government is formed in Israel does this, and that is, as opposed to lurching from crisis to crisis, which we've done. I don't give Israeli governments terribly high marks on the way we've managed this conflict. As opposed from lurching from point to point, from conflict to conflict every few years, we ought to have a position paper that says, what is it that we want at the end of the day? That we want, not that we're reacting to what the other side does. What is it that we want to see? Well, ultimately, we'd like to see peace, but we cannot do a heart transplant on our neighbors. We can't give them a different heart. But what we can do is say, We want to achieve a state in which Hamas does not possess the capability to launch rockets against Israel. If you notice, there are no rockets launched from the West Bank against Israel. And the reason is really simple. We hold the Jordan Rift Valley. They can't smuggle those weapons in. And they don't have the ability to launch rockets from the West Bank. If they had it, they would. So in the West Bank, we've been able to achieve a tranquility that is free of rockets, let's say. That's the type of tranquility. They still have Kalashnikovs, they still have grenades, they can still do ramming attacks, knife attacks, fire bombs, but they don't have rockets. We ought to say that our goal is we want to get that same situation in Gaza. And I'm really quoting Doron Almog here, who was the former general of Southern Command, highly decorated soldier, was the first officer or soldier off the plane in Entebbe and the last one on the plane, commanded that operation. So he knows whereof he speaks a lot more than I do. But what Israel should do is establish that as a goal and then say, we're not going to achieve it in this round of fighting, but we're going to have a situation where we're doing in Gaza basically what we've been doing in Syria, which is to prevent the Iranians from getting a Syrian foothold. We have an ongoing war between the wars. Those are clandestine operations that we don't talk about. We don't make announcements. We even deny them. We use special forces. We use cyber. We use aerial attacks when necessary. But it is a constant campaign between campaigns where you gradually degrade their ability to manufacture and launch rockets. And that's a policy that Israel should put into place and should begin implementing, because otherwise we'll just continue to have this every few years. We're going to have a dust up like we have right now, and innocent Israelis will pay the price and innocent Gazans will pay the price.
All right, a very interesting theory. It's playing out in Judea, Samaria for sure. We're going to put a map up in a minute. I want you to give a geography lesson for our viewers and listeners. But let me transition, Dan, to the north where Hezbollah is, and this is not proprietary information. I've spoken to and read reports that, and you were in 2006 in battle in Lebanon, that if Hezbollah starts launching not 1 or 2 or 30 or 40, but literally they can launch thousands of missiles a day, then maybe the proportionality issue goes off the table for self-survival, and then Israel has to implement a different military strategy. Speak to that for a minute.
Sure. The situation in the north is complicated by two different factors. One, Hezbollah, which is a paid employee, a vassal of Iran, receives the latest and the best Iranian technology in terms of rocketry. They have a rocket and missile arsenal that is larger than any European NATO country, just to put it in proportion. Larger than anything France has, larger than anything England has, Germany has, larger than numbers of them combined. They have the ability to launch very easily 1,000 rockets a day. Iron Dome is a wonderful system, and Israel has a 3-tiered missile defense system for short, medium, and long-range missiles. Iron Dome right now is operating at about 90% effectiveness. So Iron Dome, first of all, says, is this rocket going to hit a civilian area? And if it is, we're going to intercept it. If not, if it's going to hit an open field, we're going to let it hit the open field. But if it's going to hit a civilian area or a significant military target, we're going to intercept it. Excuse me. Iron Dome is 90% effective, which means it's 10% ineffective. So if you launch 1,000 rockets in a volley, and you aim them, let's say, at Israel's air bases, that means that 100 rockets out of 1,000 per day are going to get through and cripple your Air Force. And now you don't have the ability, because the runways are destroyed. The planes might be in underground bunkers, but the runways are destroyed. And your Air Force has been neutralized. And Israel is aware that that's a tactic that they have considered. They've war gamed it. They're ready to do that. So that would dictate an entirely different response. That would necessitate a ground invasion. The other factor that you have is that Hezbollah has said, and in 2006, for whatever reason that I don't understand to this day, the Western media never reported, the 2006 Israel-Hezbollah war began when Hezbollah ambushed an Israeli patrol, killed 10 soldiers, kidnapped 2 of their bodies. But on the same day, which no Western outlet reported, they attacked a number of civilian towns and agricultural communities. And these were not settlements. They were within the 1948 internationally recognized borders of Israel, pre-1967, 1948 Israel. They attacked Avivim. I think, in fact, you were at a number of the kibbutzim and talked to some of the kibbutzniks who repelled that attack, if I remember, on one of the tours.
Yes.
So Hezbollah has said, we will do more than what we did in 2006. We won't just hit a few border towns and border agricultural communities. We're going to have a land invasion of northern Galilee. And when we have a land invasion, our strategy isn't to capture just territory. Our strategy is to capture hostages, civilian hostages. And our greatest prize is going to be women and children. Now, you imagine if Hezbollah were able to capture 100, 200, 500 women and children as hostages. Does that cripple the Israeli army? You bet it does. You bet it does. And so the necessities in northern Israel, the military necessities in northern Israel, are a bit different than they are with Hamas. Hamas can, have a terrorist attack tunnel where they try and infiltrate and attack one kibbutz or one moshav or, even Sderot with 15 to 30 Hamasnikim, terrorists. Maybe even a bolder attack where they infiltrate 100 and try and take a kibbutz entirely. But Hezbollah has the ability to mass thousands of soldiers who look like villagers. All they have to do is change shirts. Right now, I look like Mahmoud the Shepherd because I have on my Mahmoud the Shepherd clothes. But inside of 5 minutes, I take off my shepherd clothes and I've got my uniform. I grab my Kalashnikov. I've already massed troops on the borders. I don't need to mobilize anything. They're there. So they can move from a static position to an offensive position inside of an hour or two. And their plan, and they've announced it, is to capture northern Galilee. Now, by the way, northern Galilee isn't in dispute. It's not the West Bank. It's not captured territories. It is Israel proper. But to Hezbollah and Hamas, it's important to realize that occupied territories means Tel Aviv, Haifa, Netanya, Nahariya. It means all of Israel. To them, all of Israel is occupied territory. So Hezbollah has the ability to launch massive rocket attacks, which would paralyze our Air Force, inflict massive civilian casualties in the center of Israel, and use that as a smokescreen to then launch a ground invasion of northern Israel. And for those who go, oh my gosh, that's just nonsense, it couldn't happen. Within my lifetime, it happened. That was the 1948 war. Israel was invaded from the north, from the south, from the east, by 5 different armies. And Israel was clinging by its fingernails to Tel Aviv. And all of us know and remember Lou Lenart, who was one of 3 pilots who literally saved the city of Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv was within 1 hour of being destroyed, and that would have destroyed the state of Israel. So when you say, why are Israelis so sensitive about this? We live in this mentality of we are on the verge of being destroyed. We have this wonderful army. We're the most 8th powerful country in the world, and we have nothing to worry about. We have plenty to worry about. Unlike the United States, unlike England, unlike Germany or France or any of the Western countries, we face an enemy who wants to destroy us. And the harsh reality in that neighborhood is we will either be stronger than our enemies or our enemies will kill us. It's not a matter of negotiation. It's not a matter of losing territory. We will either be stronger than the people who want to destroy us, or the people who want to destroy us will destroy us, period. And this has been a 130-year ethnic civil war over that piece of territory. And I return to the first sentence I said. If people talk about the causes and they bend over backwards to try and find these elaborate excuses, we were ethnically cleansing Sheikh Jarrah and expelling Arab families. No, there were six families facing real estate eviction after a 30-year court battle. The cause of this conflict was and is one thing. They don't want us there. They don't accept our right to be there. We are the indigenous people. We are not European colonizers. The majority of Israelis come from Middle Eastern countries. Their families have been in the Middle East for 1,000 years before Muhammad's mother was ever born. We are not strangers to that area. My great-grandfather is buried on Mount Zion, on Mount of Olives, and was a famous rabbi in Jerusalem in the 1800s. We are the indigenous people. We speak the same language that was spoken there 2,000 years ago. We worship with the exact same prayers that were spoken 2,000 years ago. We rely on the same psalms that King David wrote in the same language that I would sing lullabies to my children when they were little. All the things that define an ethnicity, to define a people, religion, language, history in a geographic space, DNA markers which mark us as coming from the Middle East, are the signs of the legitimacy of our claim to our ancestral homeland. We are the indigenous people there. And yet somehow we are portrayed as a white European colonialists, in fact, the majority of Israelis come from Arabic-speaking countries. Some of them come from Ethiopia. I'm doing a project right now, and I'll give a plug for it. We're about to do a Kickstarter for a comic and then a motion picture called Yudit, which is based on the story of an Ethiopian Hebrew queen who ruled in Ethiopia 1,000 years ago, ruled the kingdom of Axum for 40 years. For those people who say there's no need for a state of Israel as a safe refuge for persecuted Jews, tell that to Titi Aina, the former Miss Israel, who's an Ethiopian Jew who was orphaned at the age of 12 and whose family was facing persecution. And God forbid they were in Ethiopia right now, they'd be slaughtered. Israel was their only refuge. Israel is the only country in the world that says if Jews are in trouble anywhere, they're welcome here. And unfortunately, Jews have been in trouble somewhere for about 3,000 years.
Wow. A lot to digest, Dan Gordon. Tom Trento here with Susie Gold, 9:49 in the morning. We really appreciate you being with us. Mark has a question for you. Susie, I'm sure does. We'll probably leave you at the top of the hour, Dan, and get to you as this thing continues, as it looks like it will. But go ahead, Mark. You got a question for Dan?
Yes. you being a playwright, you have to think about situations in an A, B, C, D, E, F, G format. I mean, like when your Day of the Dead book, where you plan out the whole terrorist attack, which should be a great movie, by the way. You should be made the movie. And like Denzel Washington, the hurricane that you wrote, you have to go through the whole permutation of all the scenarios. An interesting scenario that I've been tossing around and I've heard from other sources is that the only reason they're launching the Gaza rockets now is to deplete the arsenal of the Iron Dome defense system, because they're $100,000 a shot. And then when you come back, and then to come back and hit them hard with like the Fatah 110 missiles, which are really serious big missiles, which will really take out a lot of civilian population. Is that a plausible theory, or what do you see that the main motivation for they're just willy-nilly throwing rockets in the air? But I think there's a bigger strategy involved with Hamas, Hezbollah, because they have not reacted yet.
It could be. It's a frightening scenario. It could be. But, excuse me, all of them know that Iron Dome doesn't just defend Israel. And that's something that people, again, I hate to confuse people with facts, but it's a necessary evil. Iron Dome, ironically, protects Hezbollah and Hamas as much as it protects Israel. You say, well, that's insane. How can Israel's missile defense system protect Hamas or Hezbollah? It's very simple. If we didn't have Iron Dome, and we did begin to suffer horrific civilian casualties, imagine what our military response would have to be then. Iron Dome buys us a number of things. It buys the political establishment time. Whereas when missiles start raining down in Israel, Israel doesn't have to order an attack inside of 2 minutes, because Iron Dome is largely protecting our civilians. So it buys us time. The other thing it buys us is military alternatives. We can say, well, we're not suffering that bad because Iron Dome is still protecting us. We don't need to do a ground invasion. We can just do an aerial campaign like what we're doing right now, take down Hamas's high-rise headquarters, their command and control centers, make them and their homes, Hamas leadership homes, and those Hamas commanders whom we can kill, and make the leadership realize, not the Hamas soldier, but the Hamas leadership realize, it's not worth it for you to continue this campaign against us, which seems to be the strategy that Israel is following right now. Make it so costly to the Hamas leadership that they go, this is not such a good idea. We need to be quiet for a while. But if we didn't have Iron Dome, and we were suffering large civilian casualties, then our military response would have to be devastating. And we have the capability of launching a very devastating military response. If we wanted to carpet bomb, we have the ability to carpet bomb. And if the only thing that we had left in our toolbox was the ability to carpet bomb, or the ability to inflict massive civilian casualties, in a choice between us ceasing to exist as a nation, or us having to do what the United States did in World War II in Germany, we would act like good Americans.
Well, I want everybody listening and watching, share this video. We're live right now, but you can get the link, share this important information. Susie, you have some questions?
Dan wanted to just touch on what this war is meaning to all of the civilians in Israel. All of
Look at this right now.
Yeah,
It's now 1,600.
1,600 rockets. And, we look at this from a bird's eye view here in our comforts of America, although I don't believe it's going to be so comfortable very long, because we know what we're addressing here with Black Lives Matter and Antifa. And then as they march, they have signs that say Free Palestine. And, so we know that there is a connection there between those groups. And we're not, but as comfortable as we feel here, we are in our studio. And then, here Israel just came out of the COVID lockdowns. So, the whole country was really, under closed doors, during that period. And now they're living in shelters, and you have the trauma from children and families, and so when we say like there should be a response that's equal to the response that came from the other side, how do you measure that? There's an emotional response. There is every single life has been affected in Israel from all of these wars. No one has gone unscathed from their families, a death in the family, or from serious injuries in their family. But can you just share a little bit about your experience in Israel and what that meant personally to the families and to the lives living under, this constant threat of war? Now in war, but there's always the constant threat of war.
We had, along with that, Dan, we had Aria Gozi, I think you know him, who's a retired IDF lieutenant colonel, tough guy, good friend of ours, and he was coming on this morning. Rishon LeZion, he lives there, very nice neighborhood, and he contacted me just before the show and said, I can't come on. We're in bomb shelters running around. That's exactly what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
How do you respond, Dan?
First of all, when I hear rocket attacks in Rishon LeZion is where my parents lived. It's when I would get leave from the army, was when I was a kid, and I would have a leave. I would make the rounds. I would go first to see whatever girlfriend I happened to have at the time. And then I would go to my parents' house in Rishon LeZion, and then I would go to my kibbutz, to my adoptive parents and my classmates. And so, and I hear Rishon LeZion, that's where my parents lived. I'm not going to say their names, but we both know a family, I think it is typical of what you're talking about, on Kibbutz Saad, just say the first name, Sarah and her family.
Yep.
Her husband, Ephraim, was born on Kibbutz Saad. They have lived under threat of attack from Gaza, literally, Ephraim, his entire life. And I can tell you that the first time I was ever shot at by machine gun fire was when I was 16 in 1963 in Kibbutz Nahal Oz. That was before the 1967 war. That was before there were any territories. And I was guilty of the crime of planting a palm tree. I was a volunteer. I was a high school kid who was volunteering on a vacation to plant palm trees in a kibbutz called Nahal Oz. And then they were called the Fedayun, attacked another kid and myself, started shooting at us with machine gun fire. And you saw the fastest Jew in the Middle East, may I say. But Sarah's family lives in Kibbutz Saad. They are 3,000 meters from the Gaza border. They have 7 seconds to get to the air raid shelter. Their daughter worked in the dairy. She was milking cows. She was looking forward to her marriage that was going to take place in a matter of days or weeks, something like that. And it was towards the end of 2014 of Tzuk that war. And she was milking the cows. She was not a soldier. She's a civilian on a farm doing morning milking. And all of a sudden they were under rocket attack. And she did not have time, because you have 7 seconds there, to get to a shelter. And so she dove underneath the milk tank. In a dairy, there's a huge tank, steel tank that contains the milk. And the shrapnel, instead of hitting her, hit the tank. And as Sarah said, at that moment, God had a choice. We were either going to go to our daughter's wedding or her funeral. That's the daily existence of not just the people who live in southern Israel now, but now of all of pretty much all the population of Israel, including Jerusalem, you have a number of seconds, not minutes, no matter where you live in Israel. Maybe you have 7 seconds, maybe you have as much as 45 seconds, but not more than that, where the wheel of fortune is spinning. And if Iron Dome is effective and not 10% defective, and if you make it to the shelter in time, you'll live. And if you don't, you will die, just like a 5-year-old boy in his parents' home died in Sderot just the other day. And
Hey, Dan, look at the screen. This is you there on one of our trips explaining everything.
Yeah, and that's in Kibbutz Saad. And
That's Sarah.
Looks like a beautiful national park, is actually a battleground, not because the people there are bearing arms, but because they are under constant rocket attack. And that's a fact of their life. People grow up there. People talk about PTSD. In 2010 or 2011, when I was with the military spokesperson unit, I was showing around a Marine captain in Sderot and Saad. And he said, when he saw that in Sderot, every 100 meters, there's a bomb shelter. When he saw that, he said, I haven't seen this much force protection since Fallujah. He said, this place is Fallujah without the body armor. I said, it is. The only difference is there aren't US Marines here. We were at a kindergarten. There are 4- and 5-year-old children here. You talk about soldiers who have PTSD. The average 4- or 5-year-old child in Saad, in Sderot, has been under as much rocket attack as a soldier in Iraq or in Afghanistan, sitting at a rear echelon base that comes under rocket attack every month. No less, except they're not a trained Marine with body armor. They're a 4- or 5-year-old kid who is asking their parents, what have we done? Why do they hate us? Why are they trying to kill us?
Unbelievable. All right, Dan Gordon, we're watching some of the footage. This is from, I think, 2016, a little bit after Protective Edge.
That's a school it's a bomb shelter.
How'd you find that, Mark? I mean, yeah, the schools are bomb shelters.
Well, that's Sarah, the guy who's
Yeah. Dan, you've taken us on a journey this morning, a very important journey, from a military perspective to a human perspective. And look, we're not callous individuals. We know there are human beings on the other side, also the Muslims there. And I'm sure if we had more time, you'd tell stories about going to Gaza to the fish markets and interacting with your Muslim friends and all of that. But there's leadership there that is intent on killing Jews.
I got to show it's playing on here, and I just forgot about this. It's really important, Tom. They're training their kids to come out of tunnels with tanks and attack. That's what the other side does.
Yeah, this is coming out of Gaza. This is a training that the kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th graders get. They're in military garb. You can watch it, everybody viewing at 10:03 in the morning. There's a Jew, a Jewish soldier that they have, life on the Gaza border, Kibbutz Saad.
Yeah.
We have a Dan, 2016 that was.
Yeah.
Well, Dan, look, you've taken us and our viewers and listeners on a very important journey. You have any final questions? I want to ask Dan to give us a 1-minute summary and an action step for those of us here in America. What are your thoughts?
Well, I actually wanted, if you could just share very quickly, when we were in Israel the last time, which was 2018,
with Dan.
and you and I sat together at that final dinner. You had just been on the Gaza border at that point. And I don't know if you remember the story, but maybe I can refresh your memory, but I think our listeners would really enjoy hearing about it. But you went out to the border and you were serving. and you were protecting and, of course, defending the southern region and Sderot in particular. And you went up close to where the fence was, and there was a family there. Does this sound familiar? And they said, shoot me, because if you shoot me, I will, just wound me. Don't hurt me seriously, just wound me because I will get money. And if you shoot my son, I will get even more money from my family. Does that sound familiar?
That wasn't me, but I forget who related that story, but that's not an unfamiliar story. That didn't happen that day in 2018, but that certainly did happen along the border, where you would see people literally come up and say exactly those words. I don't recall hearing about shoot my son, but I know about people who have said, just do me a favor and shoot me in the leg because I'll get X, Y, and Z amount of money from Hamas.
Well, he did come back all black, covered in soot and everything. From what, Dan? Why were you all covered in soot?
Givati, which was the infantry brigade in which I was honored to serve.
Oh, stop. You were how old at this time?
71.
And how did you join? And you, long life member, you've been all Givati Bay for 30 years, right?
45.
But you only qualified just in what year? Five.
I qualified for Givati at 68.
And then, but then you went back to shoot a video for them later, and you had to do what? You had to requalify all over again?
I had to do the obstacle course again, yeah.
So Dan, give us a closing minute or so, what the message is to American Christians, Jews, people that want to support Israel. And
Well, I want to tell him that.
what can our action steps
Okay,
be?
you got to go. Okay.
I didn't hear the last, Tom. Say it again.
I'm sorry.
What can our action, what could people
What's
do?
that? Stop. Say it again.
What?
I have to switch mics.
Oh, we're switching mics. Okay. Give us a minute summation, and specifically, what can people do right now here in America to support Israel?
I think the most important thing that can be done right now is to engage, to educate yourself and then engage. And every time these lies come up of this is a result of Israeli ethnic cleansing, to slap people in the face with the facts that you cannot make a moral equivalence between a 30-year-old court battle over a real estate case and the launching of 1,600 missiles against civilian populations. There is no moral equivalence between Israel and Hamas. There is no moral equivalence between Israel and Hezbollah. We are not trying to wipe out the Palestinian people. Trust me, militarily, if we wanted to do that, it's within our reach. We don't want to do that. We try to minimize their civilian casualties as well as our own, for our own reasons. Fight those pernicious lies. They are a new form of Jew hatred. They're not anti-Zionist. They're not anti-Semitic. They're Jew hatred. And it is a pernicious thing. And the reestablishment of the state of Israel has always been a joint Jewish and Christian endeavor. Absent our Christian brothers and sisters, there would never have been a state of Israel. Theodor Herzl, the founder of modern Zionism, was helped by a Protestant clergyman who was the chaplain at the British Embassy, who got him the meetings with the European heads of state that allowed him to begin negotiations with the Ottoman Turks. So absent that Christian pastor, the founder of modern Zionism wouldn't have gotten off the ground. Ord Wingate, who was a devout Christian British serving officer, laid the groundwork for the establishment of the new Israeli army, of the modern Hebrew warrior. Harry Truman, who was a Christian, was the guy who stood up to his own State Department and his best friend, George Marshall, and said, I'll recognize the state of Israel, though the State Department says no. All the way through modern times, the reestablishment of the Commonwealth of Israel and its maintenance, the prevention of the genocide, has been a joint Christian-Jewish effort. And I have to tell my Christian brothers and sisters, we Israelis love you from the bottom of our hearts. We know what you've done for us. We appreciate it. And we know that we're in a joint effort that is something which is more than political and more than fashion of the day. And we are greatly indebted to you. And educate yourselves and fight back at those pernicious lies, because they do translate into facts on the ground. And right now, more than ever, that wave of, if you saw the response to Gal Gadot, who posted a very innocuous prayer for peace and was slammed on the internet as being an apartheid, racist, genocidal bitch, and those were the kindest words, that's not a political discourse. That's classic Jew hatred.
All right, Dan
Yeah.
Gordon, we appreciate you taking the time.
And be on the lookout for our Kickstarter launch, by the way, of Yudit, which is going to be a comic and then a feature about a Black Hebrew queen / superhero. And it is the story of the final days, biblically correct, and something that I think your audience will really get, pardon the pun, a kick out. So look out for that Kickstarter.
When
Well-
is that being released?
Well, he's producing it, right? You're producing it?
We're going to launch the Kickstarter first, and that probably will be within the next, we had planned to do it May 18th, but now because of the war, we're going to push the date, and it'll probably be June or July. And I'll let you know so you can let your audience know.
Yeah, we'll do a whole piece on it and
Mhm.
get some footage and take a look at it and get the storyline, whatever you got. If it's a Dan Gordon thing, we're gonna love it. You
That's
know
right.
that. It's gonna
That's
be
right. I
great.
can't
So-
wait.
Thank you.
All
for
right,
having me on, and
Dan, you take care. We appreciate it. Look, this thing continues. We're gonna be back to you, okay?
got it. You
All
guys
right, take it easy.
Thank you, Dan.
God bless.
Bye-bye. Dan Gordon,
Yeah, he's great.
good guy, huh?
It was great hearing from him, and we covered a lot of subject
Covered a
matter.
lot.
Yes.
And he's not only does he have the experience
Mhm.
being there in the military, growing up there, the whole deal and everything, but as a writer, he's also a great storyteller. Remember, we'd be on the buses
Mhm.
and we'd be passing something, we're all tired like this. It's day 2, we're jet
Hold on, David's
lagged.
talking. Just a
Yeah.
second.
Yeah. And he goes, "Oh, look at that burnt out shell of a tank." Let me
That's
tell you.
Yeah,
that's
tell me
where
the
a
story.
German Nazi
Yeah.
airplane stormed down that the Israelis stole to
On November 1943, and then the general in charge was General Gustav. No, was it Mark Gustav? Or he knows the name. He knows everything. I mean, his mind
His
is like
historical
a steel trap.
accounts are right
Well,
on.
let's do this. I got an idea. It's 10:13. Let's go till 10:30. We got some great videos that Michelle sent,
Our producer.
our producer. Why don't you put the map up, and Susie Gold can explain to people the geography. I have a very important meeting I have to go to for about 3 minutes. I got to go
You
to a
want me to
very
what?
important meeting for about. You think you could fill the time for 3 minutes? I'll be right back.
Oh,
I'll make sure I
I could
shut my
try
mic. I'll
here.
make sure I
Can
shut
you
my
make it
mic.
quick? Well, I've been to Israel probably about, I don't know, somewhere around 15 times, and I've seen Israel from different vantage points. We went with one time we went with a Bible and traveled throughout Israel and saw Israel through a biblical perspective. And then I just went for fun because there's so much to see and so much to do that's so enjoyable. So I saw it from many points of view. And I also went with TheUnitedWest on the missions that TheUnitedWest would make. I went with Judge Janine, which was a few years ago. So, but I'm still far from an expert on the geographies, but I could tell you, when you look at Israel and you look at all of the neighboring Arab countries, Israel is like, you could barely see on a map. It's a dot. Some have likened the size of it to Rhode Island, think of Rhode Island. It's just a tiny speck in the general map. But what we have here is, if you look and see the West Bank, there is a sizable portion of Israel, but there are many Jewish, they say settlements. These are communities. These are where families are living, there's schools, there's recreational areas. And in the hopes for peace, which the Arabs say is about land, is not about land, because as we know, they sing songs that say from the river to the sea, meaning let's take all of the Jews within that region and get them into the sea. In other words, all of these wars, all of these attacks, all of these exchanges of land have been specifically to destroy, to get rid of all of the Jews. Can you put that map back up? Is that, oh, okay.
Something else that'll help you out.
Yeah.
Settlements.
Is that a video?
Yeah, that's just the map of the thing. But
Wait, I was just getting warmed up
Go
here.
ahead, go ahead.
I want to tell you, we spoke about Barry Shaw, that Barry,
that's the whole West Bank and the greens up in
the green area is,
is the blue area. Right
blue
there.
area is the Jewish
You see where the
areas.
settlements.
Yeah,
and
and
there's
when they
the
say
railroad.
settlements, they're not like tents. These are
Yeah.
communities. These are like, if you were to look at Boynton Beach, Florida, you were to look at different areas of, they don't have a lot of homes in Israel because there's such a small amount of land. So you have mostly like high risers, so that more people could live there. Otherwise, I want to tell you about the city of Netanya. I don't know if people know how the name Netanya, how they got that name.
Yeah, that's right up here on top.
It's
Yeah.
more to the,
It's on the coast,
to the coast.
Yeah.
Yes, it's right along the water, Mediterranean.
Yeah.
No, not there.
Right on the water.
actually
It's on the
further.
water.
It's by the water.
Oh,
Anyway, there were the Strauss brothers, and I'll just condense the story. But there were two brothers. There was Nathan and there was
Levi.
Abraham Strauss.
Levi Strauss.
And they were very wealthy, that they started the big department stores
Oh, really?
in
Levi Strauss,
America,
okay.
large department stores like Macy's and others. A&S stores. I don't know if people remember that.
Sure.
It was Abraham
Remember that.
Strauss. Anyway, so now you have very, very wealthy
Way up top.
American families that started these stores.
top
And you
on
can
the-
see
on the-
Netanya.
On the ocean. yeah.
So this is a very interesting story, because the two brothers decided they were going to go on a cruise, because, there was a lot of wealth. They lived in America. They worked hard. They built this unbelievable department stores throughout the United States. And what they did is they said they wanted to take their families on a cruise, which isn't like going on a cruise today. I mean, there it was only the rich got to go on cruises. So but what had happened was that it was in 1948 and there was the war going on in Israel. And one of the brothers in particular, Nathan Strauss, they both, though, really felt a connection to Israel and wanted to help in Israel. They gave a lot of money to Israel, but they were going to go on this cruise. And it was Nathan Strauss who said, you know what, brother Abraham, you go on the cruise. I'm going to go to Israel and I want to help our fellow Jews in Israel. Well, he did. And the other brother and his family continued on the cruise. That cruise ended up being the Titanic.
Oh, really?
And
Wow.
unfortunately, he died. But Nathan Strauss went to Israel, and I may have the years wrong, if it was 1948 or not, but he did go to Israel and helped in Israel, both financially and also just by his politically and through his, he was certainly a tremendous leader. And so that's how Netanya got its name, after Nathan Strauss became Netanya. So that was my story of
That's pretty
Israel.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, it really,
That's
he was
pretty
an
interesting.
amazing man. And there were many like him that went, and today there are so many kids. My children have gone to Israel. They went to camps there. My daughter went to a seminary there, which is like a women's yeshiva. And many that from America that send their kids to Israel to learn, to study. I worked on a kibbutz from the time I was 16 years old. I worked right near Kiryat Shimona. and that we do have, of course, we're Americans. We have a strong connection to Israel as Jews, and just biblically, every day in our prayers, we pray for Israel, we pray for the Holy Land. We also pray for Mashiach to come many, many times every single day in our prayers, and that's for the Messiah. And so there is, of course, there are many that are making aliyah to Israel. That are many there where there's anti-Semitism throughout the world, and they have been forced to move to Israel because that is truly a safe haven for us. Jews have never felt comfortable in many countries around the world because we are oppressed. We are people that have been kicked out of most countries. It was actually in Spain that within the past few years, they said, because of course there was a Spanish Inquisition that kicked all the Jews out. And now they're saying, come back. And if you could show that you have lineage in Spain, then you are an immediate citizen, because they want the Jews back, because with Jews, there tends to be prosperity. So, we feel that we have a safe haven. We know that our safe haven is in Israel because we know that we could have safety there, even in this time of crisis, even in this time of war, that the Israelis maintain that they protect their civilians. There are shelters, there's Iron Dome, there is the strongest military in the world. And even in wartime, I have a friend, we have a very dear friend Marty made Aliyah and actually lives in a very, very beautiful community in my community.
He's a successful physician.
Yes.
And his kids were over there fighting.
His kids in serving in the IDF.
He left Boca Raton. He said, we're
sons.
going, you know.
That's right. And he up and went, and he made Aliyah during the war on Tuesdays. I don't know exactly where he is at the moment, but I thought at that point that the airports were closed, but I know as soon as they open up, he will be there. And there are many. Nefesh B'Nefesh is an organization. It was actually started by a rabbi in my community that was Rabbi Fass, and there are some others that helped in that process, but that they started Nefesh B'Nefesh to help ease the difficulties in going from one country to another, learning the language, learning the culture, so that they help with making Aliyah. Yeah.
Aliyah, to go up.
So what was I supposed to do? Because I just kept talking.
To go up
Started
the mountain
with Israel.
to Jerusalem, to go to the top of the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
We were supposed to have today 10:21 in the afternoon, in the morning. We're supposed to have Ari Agozi, our good friend.
Mm-hmm.
Spoke with him yesterday, and we could have played what he said, because we're not on the radio right now. We're just broadcasting through the internet. But every other word was started with F. He was furious as to
And
what's going
rightfully
on.
so.
And he was going to report back this morning, but he's literally in a very nice town. And he's running between bomb shelters, taking care of his family, his friends. His hands are full. He was going to try to use the phone to do it. He was just too preoccupied making sure that everyone else was safe. Barry Shaw contacted me he wanted to explain what's going on with this Israeli extremists, the press is saying, and Arab extremists fighting each other, going to various towns, destroying stores. We're going to get to the bottom of that.
This is you back in the subway.
Yeah, that's Ms. Gavam, it looks like.
You're pointing at the airport.
We'll over there. Okay, we'll get Ronnie on tomorrow, Dr. Ronnie Wexler, to give us a little insight into the Arab Israeli communities and the fighting among the Jews. You know, it's spreading out. It's like rioting going on here. What really is happening? That's a subset to the war that's going on. Over 1,600 missiles now. I think the number is close to 100 confirmed dead in Gaza. Some, unfortunately, children, because you put a kid in front of you like this, he's going to die.
They use them as human shields.
We'll bring footage of the accuracy of these missiles on the Israeli side, but they're still missiles and they do explode.
And the missiles from Hamas are coming from civilian areas.
Mark, if you could show that, I want to put some of Michelle's stuff up. The first first pictures I sent you this morning, there's an Israeli missile coming down, stop action. So it's about 100 dead on the Gazan side. And I think it's 8 or 10 on the
Last I
Israeli
heard
side
was
right
10.
now. These are organic fluid numbers. Very sad. But you mentioned it before, Mark, and even if they're getting a discount,
Mhm.
let's say half price, $50,000 every time one Iron Dome bullet is
It's
shot.
expensive war.
And they triangulate these things. I mean, it's a bullet chasing a bullet. Very, very difficult. So it's millions of dollars, millions of that. Yeah, take a look at that. That's an Israeli, that looks like probably a 500-pound bomb, 400-pound bomb. That's pretty big, but that's been determined, the target, to be a terrorist entity. They call them up on the phone. I mean, the Israelis, they
Yeah.
send the concierge
And
out.
sometimes flyers.
They send Uber out to drive the
Mhm.
people out. Come on, we'll drive you out of here. You got to get out. We're just going to destroy your building. And look at the after shot. That was the before. And this is the kind of damage that's being inflicted. Now, Susie Gold,
Mhm.
I mean, if you're in charge of Gaza, you're going, these guys are bombing everything here and destroying our whole infrastructure. And understand, ladies and gentlemen, at any time they want, the Israelis go like this, and the lights go out in Gaza,
Mhm.
and the water goes out in Gaza.
Mhm.
They control the water and electricity. So I have friends telling me, shut the water off, shut the electricity off. Yeah. Again, back to Dan Gordon, we're not trying to punish the
Mhm. That's right.
population.
Mhm.
And I had a little discussion with some friends last night. They're going, carpet bomb, Gaza, go in and take over.
Right.
I'm saying, look, the Israelis know the Hamas.
Mhm.
They know how to keep them contained. They know how to allow the leaders to live the luxury life, wherever they are in Lebanon, wherever. I said, you take out some of that top leadership, and they really haven't gone after the big guys yet. You disrupt all of that, the crazies are going to come out of it, and Israel
Right,
have a
who's
greater
going to
problem. Who's gonna take
substitute
over?
them? Right, who will take over? They may get rid of them, but then something
have-
worse could come
You have
in.
the after picture of what the building looks like after that little bomb.
But I think, and
Yeah, it was
all of
right
our
after.
listeners need to be aware that Hamas puts the civilians up front. They put the women and children. They're innocent people. They just want to live their lives, those Muslims that are living there that are not part of Hamas. Hamas puts them there. Hamas has become really good at their PR stunts so that they could show the cameras, the poor look at what they did. They hit our homes. They hit our kindergarten schools and libraries and fields and soccer fields. And meanwhile, they were put there on purpose.
Yeah, look at that. The picture on top now, the picture on bottom, the picture on the left
Mhm.
is the bomb just before it hits. The picture on the right is the destruction. And look, I mean, we're not evil or callous people. It's very sad even to see the destruction of property. I mean,
Mhm.
war does that. We're realists. It's very sad. But missiles are coming out of that, command and control. What are you supposed to do? You have to defend yourself. You defend yourself, the other side, their person and their property gets hurt. That's the reality of
And the
war.
thing is that, oftentimes the media they show more of
The
attention.
next video, Mark.
They show more attention to those that are the weaker ones, the ones that are really suffering, and the PR stunts of Hamas has been so good because they have the cameras there, and for whatever reason, the media is always there on their side, always, and and here what is Israel to do? All these missiles are being launched, and they haven't stopped. So here they're going in
No, I
with
shut
air
my
attacks.
red alert off. I'm going to
Yeah,
put
but
it back on.
Israel has gone in with air raids
hates
and
it.
air attacks, but it has not stopped the missiles from coming over.
Yeah, well, yeah. All right, this next video. Now, this just occurred, but this is what you're going to see on this next video is what has occurred a month ago, the beginning of Ramadan, the holy month where the Quran comes to Muhammad.
The Ramadan Bombathon.
Ramadan Bombathon. What you're going to see now, which occurred yesterday, is what occurred 30 days ago, and Arab kids were attacking the Orthodox Jews. You can tell who they are because they dress as Orthodox Jews, the hats, everything else, and they would take pictures of what you're going to see and then put it up on various sites. It went viral, and at some point it started pissing off the Israelis, saying, "What are you doing to us?"
Mhm.
They start fighting back, and that low-grade conflict started to escalate. And as Carolyn Glick's article told us yesterday, Hamas was watching, and they saw the confluence of this low-grade battle, the real estate battle, Jerusalem Day, Al-Quds Day for Iran, all together. And they said this, and Washington, D.C.,
Mhm.
they see a ghost,
Mhm.
an empty vessel of a president.
How
He's
about the
floating
squad?
around.
How about
He's-
the squad in
He's
Congress?
telling people, I'm not allowed to speak. And Jen Psaki said, yes, we don't want him speaking all the time. How do you imagine Kayleigh McInerney? There, Mark, two of them. Imagine Kayleigh McInerney saying, we don't want the president to speak. That'd be for a different reason. This guy's driving everybody crazy. The other guy is, he can't say anything. He can't
Mhm.
communicate. All of that together, and we have this war. Now take a look carefully. You'll see Arabs attacking a Jewish guy from behind. He's on the right-hand side next to the woman in the red. They knock him down, hit him in the head with a brick, come kicking him, come by, kicking him some more, jump on him. And then the next video shows a different camera angle.
Well, you don't see the kicking though.
Right, you just see him getting up. He's battered and bruised, but
And this was going on.
it started
This has
this
been
whole
going
thing.
on. Yeah, this was before. This
And-
was like a month ago.
And now there's Israelis running around. All right, we're going to see the next one. Now this is all raw footage that Michelle is getting. So it's 10:31. We'll go a little bit longer. We have no.
Mhm.
We don't have to stop. We can go on as long as we want. But we should tell people this is the United West. Tom Trento, Susie Gold, J. Mark here, Monte Cristo over there. Monty, what's up? Say hello,
Hey, Monty.
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 Take your earplugs.
He's working so
Say-
hard.
Say hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Monte Cristo.
We have a great team
Yeah,
here.
he's our intern. The United West, as you know, we're an educational organization, C3. We exist
Mhm.
on donations. We need donations to keep
Oh, this is one of my favorite.
this
videos.
programming. Which one are you showing?
I'll show it to you here.
All right, and then we got a meme that we have to show. Is that the one you're showing?
No, this is my favorite video here.
Oh, this is pretty good. Take a look at this. This is the precision of the Israelis. Not willy-nilly missiles, but there's a bad guy. Oh, there was a bad guy.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's terrible.
the targeting is
Precise.
what took place there. And show it again because it's very, very important. And it shows the strength and weakness, the strength in terms of the respect for human life,
Mhm.
the weakness in the sense from the Islamic mindset. Oh, we just killed that one guy. They didn't devastate everything like we would have done,
Mhm.
like the Islamic State did. You have to have a munition that hits that spot as it's moving. Anyone who knows how to shoot a gun, it's very difficult to do. And then you have to have a payload, a munitions payload that just blows up that little area.
Mhm.
That's all unbelievable engineering. And here we go. You're looking at it, boom, goodbye. Now, depending on whether or not Mohammed was correct, that guy is hanging out with a bunch of virgins right now and just enjoying life. Yeah, good. Show the next one, then we'll wind up the meme about shawarma and the Israelis.
Here's some, you want to see some of the destruction stuff?
Yeah, go ahead. Not the bloody stuff. She sent some pretty gory stuff. Don't put any of that up. 10:33 in the morning. We'll go a few more
It
minutes.
said, I don't know if this is new. We have received explicit commitments from the U.S.
What does that mean?
We have in the back, this is I-24, which is really great news coming directly from Israel. And you could watch this, just go online, go to I-24, and you get some great messages and new information and up-to-date information.
Is this live now? No.
Yeah.
All right, we're monitoring I-24 news, which actually Xfinity and DirecTV carry this. It's by subscription, or you can get it online, as Susie said. I don't know what that is. Well, yeah, we'll have to check that out later. Right here, we have a Katyusha, or one of their AC-120s, larger missiles from Gaza, hit a home in Petah Tikva, I think it is. And all the Israelis, because the alarms had gone off, the Israelis were in their bomb shelters. But look at the damage that that was done to an Israeli home in an Israeli city from one of the missiles from Gaza.
Not a military target.
Yeah, these are homes. I mean, the Israelis warn the citizens in Gaza with leaflets, with phone calls, they drop a little firecracker on the roof to say we're coming. Everybody gets out, they destroy property. These people are the Gazans are firing missiles that they hope and pray people are home. But they're all underground now. All right, anything else?
I'm gonna show them movie real quick.
Yeah, put that up. Take a look at this, Susie. Tell me what you think. We will be back tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday. You won't be with us Saturday.
Right.
We'll be
Not
here
on
Sunday.
Saturday.
Then what's going on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday?
Monday and Tuesday is the Jewish holiday of Shavuot, which is actually the time of the giving of the Torah. We counted over 40 days, 48 days, or 49 days, 49 days from the
7
second-
sevens. Yeah.
that's-
7 weeks of 7.
7 weeks of 7, which was started the second day of Passover. So the second Seder, we started counting, and we're counting from the time we left Egypt, wandered in the desert, and then to the giving of the Torah. So that's what it really is, a celebratory holiday.
We read that for the folks.
Apparently nothing can stop an Israeli from finishing his shawarma in a lafa. He's sitting there, there's fires all around him, but he's having his shawarma.
Shawarma is good. It's
Not that good.
it's not that good.
He's like, I'm gonna finish eating.
An Israeli sandwich with meats and vegetables and everything else
Yeah,
in
it's
it.
delicious. We had it.
I want one right now, you
We had
know.
it during our trip.
Yeah. But this guy says, "Hey, bombs, who cares? I'm finishing my sandwich." So, and that will bring our shawarma show, to a close today. Why don't you close us out with your closing?
Well, first of all, my closing thoughts are, first of all, I pray for all the people of Israel, and I pray for a peaceful conclusion to this war. No one wants to see death, not on either side, from those innocent civilians. And so we pray for the peace in that region. And also, I hope that all of our listeners will tune in tomorrow and every day that we are on, because you will get the most up-to-date information as you have today. And we have some amazing guests and subject experts. But in addition to that, I would like to make an appeal that the only way that we can exist is through donations. We don't make money off of this. We certainly are not here for any financial gains. We are here to bring information, accurate information to all of you, and to hopefully bring some entertainment along the way. We do try and have fun as we share some very serious subject matter. But life in Israel, no matter what happens, no matter what is negative, no matter how much destruction, they do have an amazing ability to pick the pieces up, and they believe in life, and they move on with life, and they go on to have families just like we do here, and create lovely communities. And what I would like to share with all of you is to please search in your hearts to give us a donation so that we can continue doing the good work that we're doing here, whether whether that be $25, $100, $1,000, whatever it is that you can give us. We need checks that are big. We need those $5,000, $10,000 checks. And we also need anything that you can give us so that we can stay on the air.
We need about $100,000 to get through the rest of the
Mhm.
year, all of that. But they need to see Mark's shirt. I just saw him get up. Mark, come over here. And you know, we don't get paid. It would be nice to pay people, but here's how Mark functions. I think that's a pretty good short statement of your life. Say hello to the folks as we leave here.
Hello, folks.
They have to see your shirt.
Let's see my shirt.
What does it
This
say,
shirt's very
Susie?
cool. Look at that. It says, "That's what I do. I drink and I fix things." That kind of sums it up. But he
Oh.
fixes a lot of things. He works his magic with this equipment here because we are really working on a
We need a new
shoestring
computer for him. It
budget.
doesn't even
His
work
computer
anymore.
is falling apart. It's amazing that it still turns on. He manages to put this wires in every direction. He manages to put it all together and make it so that others can come in, works the Zoom, works every aspect of our technology. So please search in your heart to so that we can continue, give us donations so we can continue doing the work that we're doing.
And a special thanks to Mary, who's always
Mary's-
behind the
Yes, in
scenes.
Georgia.
Yep.
Yep.
And,
Yep. She's also a co-producer.
Co-producer, runs the stuff. I mean, if she lived here, she'd be in the studio right here with Mark. So,
Yes.
all right, folks, we got to get going. If things get dramatically different, we'll put out an email, get back on this afternoon. Otherwise, 9 a.m. East Coast time tomorrow morning. Tom Trento, Susie Gold, Monte Cristo, Mark, Mary, and the rest of the team.
And Michelle.
Probably if something major breaks, we'll be on air.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
anything major that breaks.
Let's go break open a bottle of wine and a couple of
Okay.
cigars.
Yeah.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye,
And Ronnie
everybody.
tomorrow. You know what? We'll open the wine tomorrow when Ronnie gets here.
Oh,
gets
that's a
here.
good idea.
Ronnie can come
No,
in.
you don't have to wait.
Yeah, there's enough wine. We could either do Ronnie zoomed in or he comes in the studio. All right, see you all.
Okay, bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.